Have you ever felt like you're always one step behind? Like others can command a room without saying much, while you're still trying to find your ground? Maybe you've been in a conversation where someone twisted your words with a smile, or made you question your instincts without ever raising their voice. That's not luck. It's not charisma. It's control. While most people react, speaking too soon, revealing too much, and giving away their position before the real game begins, you can choose a different path, a quieter kind of power, one forged through discipline, clarity, and self-mastery. This isn't about manipulation. This is about mastery of your emotions, your energy, and your presence. What if you could read intentions before a single word is spoken? What if you could shift dynamics without ever needing to raise your voice? These are not tricks. These are principles, timeless, unshakable, rooted in the wisdom of Stoicism. If you're ready to stop being moved by the world and instead move through it with calm, deliberate purpose, stay with me. These 6 insights will reshape not only how you view power, but how you carry it. 1. Master emotional stillness. You've seen it happen. Someone begins to unravel in a conversation. Their tone shifts. Their voice rises. Their words become reactive. That's not strength. That's surrender. Because the moment you let emotion lead, you lose command. And in every room, every negotiation, every challenge, the one who controls their emotions controls the outcome. Not by overpowering others, but by staying anchored while others drift. Stoic power starts here, realizing that emotions are not facts. They're impulses, fleeting, often misleading. The wise man doesn't suppress emotion, but neither is he ruled by it. He observes. He decides. He acts with intention. Anger might feel powerful for a moment, but it's a leash. If someone can pull a reaction from you, they don't need to defeat you. You'll do it for them. Think about it. When was the last time you were drawn into an argument? Insulted, mocked, questioned. You replied sharply, emotionally. Did it give you peace, or did it hand them your power? This is how most people lose, not publicly, but internally. Not through what was said, but through how they responded. But the Stoic waits. He watches. He lets silence speak. Insult becomes a test. Anger, a trap. He doesn't jump in. He holds the frame. Imagine someone trying to provoke you, loud, aggressive, emotional, and you remain still, unshaken. Not because you're passive, but because you've trained for this. They expect chaos, and you offer calm. They burn themselves out. You remain intact. That's what true control looks like. Some will say, emotion makes you relatable. And it does, when you choose when and how to show it. But if you bleed every time you're poked, you become readable. And what is readable is controllable. A man who can be read too easily is a man who can be played. In Stoic philosophy, emotional restraint isn't about being cold. It's about protecting your center. It's about remaining sovereign within yourself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." That's not poetry. That's tactical. The world will pull, push, and provoke. People will misunderstand you, insult you, try to define you. And every time you face a choice. Do I react from impulse or respond from principle? The man who can pause before he speaks holds more influence than the one who dominates with volume. Imagine someone insults you in public. All eyes on you. They expect you to strike back. But instead, you say nothing. You hold the gaze. Maybe you nod. Maybe you walk away. And suddenly, the loudest thing in the room is your silence. They expected to pull you into their storm. Instead, you left them standing in their own chaos, alone. That is power, not noise, not performance, presence. If you're always reacting, someone else is writing the script. But when you control your response, you write your own terms. And that's where power truly begins. When you do, you define the atmosphere. You decide what matters and what doesn't. And above all, you decide who holds the power in the moment. Here's a difficult truth. Most people are slaves to emotional reflex. A sarcastic comment makes them defensive. A dismissive tone stirs their anger. A delayed reply sends their mind into a spiral. They believe they're thinking, but they're simply reacting, drifting wherever their emotions pull them. But the Stoic man does not drift. He decides. He discerns. He knows that not every opinion deserves a response, and not every conflict is worth the cost of his peace. While others expose themselves through noise, he builds quiet strength through stillness. You want to earn respect? Stop explaining yourself emotionally. Stop arguing for your worth. You're not here to win approval. You're here to remain anchored in your values. Even in conflict, you don't need to meet fire with fire. Let your calm be your message. Let your stillness do the talking. Watch how others begin to squirm, trying to make you flinch. Watch how they falter when you don't. Think like a general, not a foot soldier chasing every skirmish. Let others waste their arrows on emotion while you prepare for the long campaign. Keep your tone steady, your mind focused, your words rare. And when you do speak, make each word cut with clarity, deliberate, controlled, impossible to ignore. Don't let people bait you into emotional reaction. Let them chase your silence instead. There is power in restraint. It disarms aggressors, it unsettles critics, and it cements your presence as someone who is not easily moved. When you speak only when necessary and with precision, people listen. They may not say it, but they feel it. Because deep down, everyone recognizes composure as a sign of inner depth. So next time someone pushes you, pause. Ask yourself, is this response worthy of me, or is this just a test of my discipline? You don't have to answer every storm. Sometimes, the most powerful move is no move at all. That's how power works in the Stoic world. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's grounded, still, immovable. Begin with yourself. Hold the line internally, and the world will adjust to you. Second, let silence lead. In a world obsessed with noise, silence becomes a rare and potent force. Everyone is rushing to speak, to be heard, to prove themselves. But the Stoic knows better. Power doesn't come from the volume of your voice. It comes from the weight of your presence. When you are silent, you're not empty. You're listening. You're observing. You're measuring. While others waste energy trying to impress or defend, you stay composed. You remain the one thing they cannot read, cannot predict, cannot control. And that unsettles people. Look around. Most people fear silence. They scramble to fill it, chattering, over-explaining, reaching for approval. They mistake movement for progress and words for impact. But in silence, you gain leverage, because silence makes others project. They wonder what you're thinking. They interpret your stillness as wisdom, or threat, or disinterest. And the more they guess, the more they reveal. You didn't demand anything. You just made space and watched. That's power, and the Stoic uses it well. He doesn't interrupt. He doesn't defend his ego with noise. He simply watches and learns. Others expose their insecurities, their desires, their fears, just to escape the discomfort of silence. And when the time comes, he speaks, briefly, clearly, with words that land. There's a story of a Roman general who sat silently through a heated council. His enemies took it as weakness. But when he finally spoke, his one sentence ended the argument, shifted the momentum, and won the room. That's not a parable. That's strategy. A Stoic doesn't speak to fill space. He speaks to move it. And every silence before the word makes that word more powerful. Silence also tests your own discipline. Can you sit across from someone and say nothing without flinching? Can you let the discomfort rise without rushing to ease it? Most can't. They begin rambling, confessing, justifying, revealing more than they ever intended. All you did was wait. In negotiation, in conflict, in everyday conversation, the man who speaks least often holds the strongest position, not because he's withholding, but because he's anchored. He allows others to over-offer, overreach, over-explain. Then, with minimal effort, he cuts straight to the truth. That's not manipulation. That's discipline. That's persuasion through presence. Even outside of intense moments, silence remains powerful. In business, pausing after a question signals confidence. In interviews, leaving space before answering shows you're not desperate to please. In relationships, a man who speaks with care is seen as someone of substance. Why? Because he's not grasping. He's not performing. He's not trying to be liked. He's centered. And people feel that. Silence becomes sacred, not as absence, but as presence. It's not empty. It's full of strength, of control, of certainty. When you no longer need to respond to every comment, when you can let go of the urge to explain or defend, you become unshakable. And others? They'll feel the shift. They'll speak differently around you. They'll pause before challenging you. They'll lean in, because silence, when owned, commands more than any shout ever could. The Stoics taught control begins within, and silence is the sound of that control. Silence is one of the purest signals of self-command. It's not weakness. It's not passivity. It's position. It's discipline. It says, I know who I am. I know what matters. And I don't need to perform for your understanding. Here's the deeper truth. The more you talk, the more predictable you become. And in a world flooded with noise, predictability is cheap. But when you speak with restraint, when your voice becomes rare, you become valuable. Rarity commands respect. Let your words be earned, not spilled. Let others wonder what you're thinking. Let them reach for your perspective. Because what is scarce is always seen as sacred. Silence creates contrast. It sharpens your presence. Without it, your speech becomes background noise. But with it, even a single phrase can shift the atmosphere. The goal is not to go silent. The goal is to become measured, to know that timing carries as much weight as content. And when you finally speak, after holding your silence like a blade, the impact is unmistakable. Train yourself to be still in a world that fears quiet. Let others stumble over their need to be understood. Let them fill the air. You hold your ground. And when your moment arrives, make every word count, as if it were chosen for war. This is not casual conversation. This is strategy, composure, dominance through stillness, master silence. And you won't need to convince. You'll command. From that posture of calm strength, you're ready for the next lesson. 3. Be strategically misunderstood. There's a rare kind of strength. One that doesn't need to announce itself. It watches. It waits. It lets others assume, guess, overreach, while it quietly controls the entire field from the shadows. This is the Stoic art of psychological misdirection. Not deception, discipline. The discipline to remain unreadable, to let others fill in the blanks with their own projections. In that space, between what they think they know and what is real, you take control. Most people walk through life like open books. What they feel is written on their face. What they believe is blurted out without filter. Their strengths, their insecurities, their thoughts, all exposed. There's honesty in that, yes, but also vulnerability, predictability, and anything predictable is easily outmaneuvered. The Stoic man understands this. True power doesn't lie in what you show. It lies in what you withhold. You don't need to impress. You don't need to prove. You only need to remain centered while others reveal themselves. Let them underestimate you. Let them think you're slower, softer, unaware. That illusion is your camouflage. It lowers their guard. It makes them speak freely, reveal carelessly, act arrogantly. And in their comfort, they show you who they really are, not because you pushed, but because you allowed them to believe they were in control. Meanwhile, you're watching, listening, gathering, and when it counts, you move. There's ancient wisdom in this. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." In other words, don't mirror chaos. Don't react emotionally. Don't reveal your hand. Stay still. Let them believe they've won. Then act. Clean, precise, and without warning. Strategic misunderstanding doesn't mean pretending to be someone else. It means revealing only what's necessary and concealing the rest. You might downplay your knowledge, not out of insecurity, but to see who overstates theirs. You might allow someone to feel they've outsmarted you, just to watch how their pride blinds them. You might agree outwardly, while inwardly, you're already 10 moves ahead. The average man lives in straight lines. What he says is what he means. What he feels is what he shows. But you are not average. Where others react, you pause. Where they speak, you observe. Where they rush to be seen, you remain unreadable. Because when you are fully known, you are fully vulnerable. But when you are strategically misunderstood, you are untouchable. Imagine a quiet man in a room full of talkers. He nods. He listens. They speak openly around him, mistaking his silence for indifference. But beneath that calm is calculation. He notes every word, every gesture, every slip. And when he speaks, he shifts the entire room. Not because he was loud, but because he was precise. Even in confrontation, this tactic holds. Someone provokes you, pushes, insults. They expect defiance, but you respond with calm. A nod, a faint smile, not of agreement, but indifference. And in that moment, they begin to question themselves. That hesitation? It's all you need. The best misdirection isn't about falsehood. It's about creating enough space for others to misread you. And by the time they realize the truth, you've already moved into position. This isn't manipulation. It's mastery of impression. In a world that values speed and noise, your restraint becomes your leverage. The Stoic man knows. He doesn't need to be recognized early. He only needs to be in control when it counts. So let others reveal themselves. Let them speak. Let them believe they've figured you out. And while they do, you prepare, you watch, you wait. Because the one who appears harmless is rarely guarded against. And when the sharp edge finally appears, it hits 10 times harder. 4. Turn absence into strength. What is constantly seen becomes overlooked. What is always available loses its weight. In a world addicted to presence, the rare man becomes unforgettable. Scarcity, when applied with purpose, is not manipulation. It's discipline. It says my time, my presence, my energy are not given by default. They are earned. Most people offer themselves too easily. They respond to every message, show up to every invite, speak into every silence, not because it matters, but because they fear being forgotten. They confuse visibility with influence, but in truth, they dilute their impact. Because in the Stoic view, what is predictable is powerless. You don't need to be everywhere to be remembered. In fact, the less they see you, the more they feel your absence. Absence, when chosen, becomes louder than any presence. It creates curiosity. It forces reflection. It leaves space for others to wonder, to fill in the blanks, to project value onto you, not because you claimed it, but because you left something unsaid. People don't chase what they understand fully. They chase what feels rare. So become rare, not by hiding, but by choosing when and how you show up. Let your attention signal intention. Let your presence feel earned, not assumed. Take the man who speaks rarely in meetings. While others scramble to contribute, he waits, he listens. And when he finally speaks, the room falls silent. Not because he forced it, but because his words carry weight. This is the power of strategic absence. It creates contrast. It commands focus. It's not about being invisible. It's about being intentional. Epictetus reminds us, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Why? Because absence from ego is a form of presence and strength. Let others chase attention. You chase clarity. Let others fill the room. You fill the silence with presence. And when you do appear, when you do speak, it means something. That is power, not in being seen constantly, but in being felt deeply when it counts. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Why? Because it means you've let go of the need to be seen by everyone. You've withdrawn from the addiction to constant validation. And in that withdrawal, done not from bitterness, but from clarity, your presence becomes sacred. Scarcity, applied with intention, rewrites how the world interacts with you. If your time is always available, people will treat it like it's worth nothing. They cancel, they delay, they overstep. Not because they're unkind, but because you've taught them there is no cost. But when you set clear boundaries, when you pause before replying, when you conserve your energy for what actually matters, people shift. They come more prepared. They listen more closely. They measure their words more carefully, because yours are not given lightly. This extends beyond time. It applies to speech. A man who speaks with restraint forces others to lean in. His silence carries meaning. His words carry weight. And his presence, even when quiet, becomes unforgettable. This is scarcity in motion, a presence that speaks more through what is withheld than what is expressed. Think of elite rooms. Not everyone is allowed in. Not everything is explained. The doors are guarded. The rules are unwritten. And the silence around them speaks louder than any noise could. It's not arrogance. It's value, protected. Apply this principle to your own life. Pull back from the noise. You don't need to post every move. You don't need to reply to every message. You don't need to explain why you disappeared. Disappear and let your absence speak for you. Reappear when it matters and let your presence feel like a decision, not a habit. This isn't a game. It's training. You're teaching others how to see you as someone whose attention is sacred, whose time is not transactional, whose energy is not for sale. When people realize that you move by your own compass, not by their expectations, they adjust. They stop assuming access. They start earning it. And more importantly, you protect yourself. You stop sprinting toward visibility and begin walking with intention toward alignment. You don't dilute your presence. You refine it. Let others flood the room with their urgency. Let them exhaust themselves trying to be seen. You stay measured. You stay composed. And when you do move, move with purpose. Because in a world that constantly exposes itself, the man who is rare becomes revered. Remember, you don't need to be seen by everyone. You only need to be remembered by the right ones. 5. Lead quietly through reflection. There's a quiet strength that doesn't command through force. It doesn't shout. It doesn't dominate. It simply moves like water, subtle, steady, and sure. This is the strength of mirroring. A Stoic understands that leadership isn't always about control. Sometimes the most powerful influence comes not through confrontation, but through reflection. People trust what feels familiar. When someone sees their tone in your tone, their rhythm in your rhythm, their language mirrored back, something inside them relaxes. They feel seen. And once someone feels understood, you've crossed a threshold that logic alone can never breach. The Stoic doesn't win arguments, he wins minds. He doesn't overpower, he aligns. This isn't mimicry, it's calibrated connection, and it begins with observation. You watch, you listen, you notice their posture, their pace, the weight of their words, their emotional tempo, and gently, you match it, not theatrically, not artificially, but with quiet presence, just enough for them to think, this person gets me. And that, though it may feel subtle, is everything. Walls drop, defensiveness fades, and in that stillness, you find your opening. Because once alignment is established, they begin to follow, not because you forced them, but because you made them feel safe. Influence is not control, it's movement. And movement begins with emotional safety. This is how you lead without pushing. This is how trust is built without pressure. You haven't taken control. They've offered it. This is especially effective in subtle power dynamics. You don't need to raise your voice to lead the room. You simply guide the tone, so subtly they don't notice they're following you. You slow your voice. You lower your intensity. You ask one thoughtful question. If they follow, you're leading. If they resist, you adapt, but you stay grounded. This isn't performance. It's stillness with precision. Even in conflict, mirroring is your silent shield. When someone comes in hot, emotional, loud, reactive, you meet their intensity for a moment, just enough to be understood. Then you lower it. You guide the energy downward. You don't escalate. You diffuse, not by resistance, but by example. And slowly, almost invisibly, they follow. They don't lose. They settle. Because you've offered them something stronger to match. You're calm. This is how you walk someone out of their fire. Not by fighting it, but by becoming the stillness they forgot they needed. It's the same in persuasion. You could have the sharpest argument in the world, but if your rhythm is off, if your tone is disconnected, they won't hear you. Words bounce off armor. But when you first reflect their concern, their pacing, their world, even briefly, they open. That's when your words enter. That's when your influence begins. Because Stoic persuasion isn't about appeal. It's about alignment. A grounded man doesn't speak to be heard. He speaks to be felt. And once trust is built through mirroring, you begin to lead. You shift the pace. You guide the tone. You direct the flow without resistance. They think it was a good conversation. What they don't realize is you orchestrated the rhythm from the first moment. This is not manipulation. This is moral strategy. You're not leading people for ego. You're leading them through clarity, through presence, through connection, not through pressure. And here's the deeper truth. People won't always remember your argument. They won't always recall your facts. But they will always remember how they felt in your presence. Mirroring isn't about being liked. It's about being in sync. And when someone feels in sync with you, they trust you, even if they don't understand why. That's when influence becomes effortless. You don't have to convince. You don't have to fight. You don't have to push. You simply move, and they move with you. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to demand attention. You simply stand in quiet authority, and others begin to move beside you without resistance. The Stoic doesn't need the spotlight. He shapes the moment without claiming it. He understands that leadership isn't always about control or titles. Sometimes it begins with silence, with presence, with the calm ability to mirror, and then to guide. In doing so, He becomes the still point in a room full of noise, the one others feel drawn toward, even if they can't explain why. So next time you walk into a conversation, don't rush to be heard. Watch, listen, reflect, then guide. Because once you've mastered the rhythm of others, you begin to shape the flow of everything. And from that place of calm influence, the next level of power becomes possible. You stop chasing control. You begin to carry it. 6. Walk away with clarity. Power isn't always in what you do. Sometimes it's in what you no longer entertain. The Stoic understands. True strength isn't just knowing when to speak, but knowing when to leave. The most dangerous presence in any room. The one who doesn't need to stay. He's not here for ego, not here to prove. He's here on principle. And when that principle is compromised, he doesn't argue. He exits. Most people stay far too long. In conversations, relationships, jobs, or conflicts that no longer align with their path. Not out of belief, but out of fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of letting go. They confuse endurance with loyalty and call it strength. But enduring what you'd never advise another to tolerate, that's not resilience. That's quiet desperation, dressed as patience. The man who has done the inner work, who has shaped his values with clarity, doesn't stay out of obligation. He leaves with certainty. And when he does, he doesn't burn bridges. He doesn't dramatize. He simply steps away and lets his absence say everything. His silence becomes a mirror. His exit becomes a message. It forces reflection, not about him, but about those left wondering, what made him walk away? This is not coldness. This is self-respect. You've already defined your terms. You've already clarified what aligns and what doesn't. So when something crosses that line, you don't plead. You don't explain. You don't fight for space you've outgrown. You walk, not in bitterness, in wisdom. Whether it's a draining conversation, a deal that no longer serves you, or a dynamic that costs more peace than it's worth, you don't force it to make sense. You recognize the weight of your time, and you move. And in doing so, you send a message. You are not ruled by attachment. You are not moved by fear. You are not available for everything, because not everything deserves you. This makes you unpredictable, not unstable, but unconstrained. People feel it when you don't need them, and that energy changes everything. In business, your terms become stronger. In relationships, your presence earns reverence. Socially, you become the one who doesn't compete, because you're not even in the game. You've built your life from the inside out, so no external outcome controls your internal state. Even in disagreement, the wise man knows, sometimes the most powerful move is no move at all. Let them raise their voice. Let them tell their story. You walk away and let your silence speak for you. Later, they'll revisit that moment, wondering why you didn't stay to fight. That silence will echo. That absence will stay with them, because walking away protects your future. It guards your energy. It preserves your dignity. You turned the page when the story no longer served your growth. And people notice. Even if they never admit it, they respect the one who didn't cling, who didn't beg, who wasn't afraid to walk away. When people know you can leave, they stop taking your presence for granted. That's the quiet power of the exit. And from that stillness, you don't retreat. You rise. You move forward, focused, steady, and untouchable. True power doesn't shout. It doesn't posture. It doesn't chase. It moves quietly, sees clearly, chooses wisely. These 6 rules aren't tricks. They're not tactics for domination. They are disciplines of presence, forged in restraint, anchored in clarity, guided by timeless Stoic reason. When you master your emotions, speak less. Let others misjudge you. Protect your distance. Guide through subtlety. And walk away when it's time. You don't just move through the world. You shape it. Most people stay stuck at the surface, loud, reactive, and constantly trying to be seen. But not you. You now carry the presence of a man who knows who he is. So take a breath. Let this settle in your mind. And if this message shifted something within you, subscribe and continue walking this path of quiet strength. Leave a comment saying, "Stay 5 steps ahead," to anchor this in your awareness. Because the world doesn't need more noise. It needs unshakable presence. Be that presence. And I'll see you in the next lesson.